book and myself as we guide you through a space weather certificate program like no other. To enroll in the Space Weather and Environment Science program offered at Millersville University, go to millersville.edu/SWEN. It's weather for the 21st century. This forecast also sponsored in part by CW Ops. Space weather kicks into high gear this week as we take a look at our Earth-facing disk. Look at all the active regions, especially in the east. And believe it or not, there's going to be more regions rotating into Earth view here over the next couple days. But we're really interested in region 3386. Back on the 31st, if you look just south of that region, whoosh, do you see that? That was a filament eruption that is now an Earth-directed solar storm, but believe it or not, that's not the only one. About 12 hours later, if you look northwest of that region, whoosh, there goes another solar storm that's partly Earth-directed. And then on the 2nd, if you wait for it, bam, right there, that is yet another solar storm, and this one is also Earth-directed. So we have literally back-to-back-to-back solar storms and kind of a train coming toward Earth, and we'll talk more about how that's going to affect us in a little bit. Meanwhile, take a look at the east limb. Do you see all the brightness, especially in the south? Well, that is old region 3363. This region about 2 weeks ago gave us a barrage of big solar flares, a lot of radio noise, and big solar storms that kept grazing Earth. And believe it or not, it survived its far side passage, and it's going to be back Earthside here in the next couple days. So expect that solar flux to rise, expect the noise on the radio bands to also rise, and expect radio blackouts are going to be back on the menu. And as we take a look at the sun from the far side, we can no longer use stereo A imagery because stereo's location is now basically viewing the sun from the front side, just like Earth is. So now we go to the JSOC helioseismology far-sighted viewer and HMI imagery from about 2 weeks ago to get an idea of what is actually surviving the far side passage in terms of these big active regions. And as we take a look at the helioseismology, you can actually see in the gold regions, look at region 3363. Man, that region is big and dark. It has definitely survived this far side passage, but it's not the only one. We also have regions 3372 and possibly region 3376 from the last time we saw them. All of these were big flare players when they were on the Earth-facing disk. In fact, as we take a look at the simulated far-sighted sun, you can see region 3363 definitely dominates the region, the whole disk, but you can see region 3372. That is a cluster of regions, and also 3376. If these regions are going to be as strong as they were the last time we saw them back 2 weeks ago, we definitely are in for more than just big flares from region 3363, but also big flares for probably the next week past that. So definitely expect that solar flux to stay up. Expect radio blackouts to stay on the menu easily over the next 2 weeks, and the potential for more solar storms. Now, returning to the train of solar storms that are on their way to Earth, we switch to our solar storm prediction model, NLOL. Now, this is NASA's version of the model, and you're looking down at the sun from the North Pole with Earth being off to the right. And as we take a look at that very first solar storm, this was that filament launch, but it also had some extra stuff from the east limb of the sun, which means that this solar storm is quite wide. And at Earth, it's going to end up being a direct hit. NASA's expecting the impact to be early on the 4th, and we could be storming over the course of the day. Now, as we switch to the second solar storm, this was a much smaller solar storm, and it was launched basically to the northwest of Earth. In fact, as we watch it, it's not going to make a very big impact, but there is a small grazing incidents that we're going to see at Earth, and this could likely enhance the storming that we're already seeing because the impact is expected to be late on the 4th. So we're going to have 2 back-to-back solar storms, one that's a direct hit, one that's kind of a side swipe. But then we go to the third solar storm, and as we take a look at that, this one is much faster, but it is moving mainly to the west, but we are going to get a decent part of that flank hitting Earth. So this one is actually going to hit us early on the 5th, and that's basically when the other one is going to be calming down. So from this perspective, with all 3 of these storms hitting, we could start storming from basically the beginning of the 4th all the way in past the 5th, possibly into the 6th before we finally calm down. So aurora photographers, this is an excellent chance to be able to catch some extended shows and give you lots of opportunities for some very nice views. Switching to our moon, we are now coming out of the full moon phase on our way to a third quarter. And by the 8th, the moon will still be about 49% illuminated. So you night sky watchers, if you want to catch those dim objects in the sky and possibly some aurora, you're going to need to check your local rise and set times because of this bright companion. Switching to our solar storm conditions and aurora possibilities over the coming week, we are anticipating the hit from that train of solar storms to impact Earth sometime starting around the 4th. So at high latitudes, NOAA is expecting major storm conditions. In fact, we have up to about a 50% chance of a major to a severe storm. That's at a G2 level or higher. And the peak should be right around the 5th, although we could get a little storming ahead of that right around the 4th, and then that could actually linger into the 6th and possibly the 7th before things really begin to quiet down. So aurora photographers at high latitudes, you could be in for a decent show all the way through this week. Now at mid latitudes, well, the conditions are still pretty good. We are expecting minor storm conditions, but we have about a 15% chance of major storm conditions. Now again, the peak will be around the 5th. We could start storming a little bit before that, so we have kind of an aurora watch both on the 4th and on the 6th, but by the 7th, things should definitely be settled down at mid-latitudes. So aurora photographer, if you're at mid-latitudes, well, you do have a good chance. Expect things right around the 5th, and definitely keep your eyes peeled and your batteries charged. Switching to our solar flare and dayside radio blackout outlook over the coming week, we do have a lot of active regions on the Earth-facing disk, including region 3380, which is by far the biggest flare player as of right now. Now, this region is rotating to the sun's west limb, but with all of this activity and new regions rotating into Earth view, we are still sitting in the 160s to the 170s for solar flux, and that is the way it's going to continue. This means good propagation on Earth's dayside, but again, we do have the moderate noise level right now, and this is on the radio bands, and this is basically mainly due to region 3380, which is actually growing in complexity as it rotates to the sun's west limb. So we may get some big radio blackouts from it yet before it disappears. NOAA's giving us about a 50 to 55% chance of an R1 to R2 level radio blackout over the next couple days, and even about a 10% chance of X-class flares. And expect these levels to kind of dip down a little bit over the next few days as that region disappears to the west limb. However, we do have new regions rotating into Earth view, and that may bring that risk right back up. So conditions, expect them to stay reasonably the way they are, and amateur radio operators and emergency responders, well, you're just going to have to deal with the noise on the bands. Switching to our radiation storm and polar aviation outlook over the coming week, everything is all quiet right now. We are sitting at the D1 normal range for you aviators at flight level 360. Now the D index is slightly higher for flights that go over the poles, but we don't have any active radiation storms right now. We are at the S0 level. However, with region 3380 rotating to the sun's west limb and kind of growing in complexity, we do have about a 10% chance of an S1 to S2 radiation storm over the next couple days, and that will drop a little bit more as that region disappears behind the sun's west limb. And then it looks like everything is going to be in the clear easily over this next week before we have to worry about the risk for radiation storms rising again. So the space weather this week has kicked into high gear. We have multiple solar storms that are headed toward Earth, and they could give us some decent aurora show even down into mid-latitude. So aurora photographers, be sure to keep your batteries charged and expect the peak of the storms to be right around the 5th. Now, amateur radio operators and emergency responders, well, you're dealing with a bit of noise on the bands, and sadly that's going to continue easily over the rest of this week. We might get a little bit of a drop off as region 3380 rotates to the sun's far side. However, it's likely going to give us a couple more big solar flares and some radio blackouts before it disappears. Then we also have new regions rotating into Earth view, and we'll get a better look at those over the next few days, but likely radio blackouts are going to stay on the menu. And now you GPS users, well, your day side radio blackouts do cause an issue and cause issues for you mainly around dawn and dusk, but now we're also having these solar storms on the night side. So GPS reception over this week is going to be a little bit dicey, and so just make sure you stay vigilant anywhere near dawn and dusk and anywhere near aurora on the night side. And if you are a UAV pilot, be sure to calibrate your magnetometers often. I'm Tamitha Skov, the Space Weather Woman. Thank you for watching.
It's time to get your news on. We are VK1WIA.
Yes, it certainly is the WIA National News Service. In our 28th year of non-stop news, this edition for August the 6th, 2023. And probably our last portable operation for a while. Those that have listened for the last few weeks have noticed that we have been operating portable. Well, the final stop on the tour? Yep, VK7. And I'd like to give you a warm welcome to the show, but let me tell you, it's cold down here. Now, apologies also to Justin and Tony for not popping in to see you, but we just did not have the time. But we've got the time for you now, certainly the next 30 minutes. The best news you'll get all week from your WIA. I'm Editor Graham, VK4BB.
This news originates from the Wireless Institute of Australia. Dreaming, believing, achieving. We are VK1WIA. Now with international news, Jason, VK2LAW.
Hello. Leading this week's international news from Region 1, a second and very brief activation of the remote granite islet known as Rockall was called off after hazardous conditions in the North Atlantic had forced a team of 3 to return to the mainland. They had to turn back after making several passes of Rockall. The trio was travelling to recover radio equipment left there during the June activation of Mike 0 Uniform Kilo India. Describing the team's failed attempt to return, one would-be rescuer wrote on the Rockall D Expedition's Facebook page, quote, "Nature has said no. We reached Rockall without difficulty, but the waves were extremely high. That's the way of life," end quote. Don't be discouraged. The team plans another recovery attempt. IARU Monitoring Service in Region 1 has reported on interference from illegal stations, particularly here in Region 3. Every Tuesday, monitors could hear the splatter from 21455 kHz to 21450 kHz, from 1000 to 1100 UTC, caused by the broadcasting station Radio Free Asia, transmitting from Tinian Island on 21455 kHz, but it was disturbed by a Chinese 20 kHz wide jammer. Village Radio SSB communications from Region 3 were heard on 40, 12 and 15 metres, as well as Pirates on 15 metres and CBers on the 10 metre band. Also, the annoying Spanish fishers, always the same for years, were heard transmitting on 21000 kHz USB as usual, very often. On the 10 metre band also received were illegal fishing buoys, transmitting a CW 2 or 3 letter code to help fishers radio locating their nets, and others using short FSK, sending their ID and position encrypted. Now, for newcomers, IARU is the Worldwide Federation of National Amateur Radio Organisations. The IARU membership consists of more than 160 member societies in and as many countries and separate territories. WIA is your only Australian member organisation. In news from Region 2, the Enforcement Bureau of the US Federal Communications Commission, FCC, is continuing its active efforts, as I reported last week, to curb pirate radio operations across the country, issuing notices to 3 separate operators. Notices of apparent liability for forfeiture were issued to 2 pirate radio operators, one in Boerne, California, and the other in Rockford, Illinois. In the first instance, the operator was found to have willfully and repeatedly interfered with radio communications of the Western Amateur Radio Friendship Association, WARFA, during the association's regularly scheduled on-air meetings. In the second case, the operator made multiple one-way radio transmissions for an extended period of time, including recorded comedy routines, air raid sirens and digital noises. One transmission observed by an Enforcement Bureau field agent continued for over 30 minutes, during which time other users were blocked from accessing the channel. The FCC proposed financial penalties of $24,000 and $25,000 respectively in these cases. In a separate action, the FCC issued a notice of unlicensed operation to a Utica, New York operator who reportedly made unauthorized transmissions on frequencies used for police dispatch communications in Herkimer County, New York. The operator was given 10 days to cease the illegal interference and to notify the FCC of the specific steps they've taken to avoid operating on the unlicensed frequencies in the future. The ARRL board has voted to increase membership dues starting January 1st, 2024. In addition, members will be required to pay $25 on top of the membership dues in order to continue receiving printed copies of ARRL magazines such as QST and On the Air. Membership plus QST delivered first-class mail in the USA would equate to $132 per annum. As an example, that's close to 194 Australian dollars. ARRL President Rick Roderick called the dues increase a necessary part of ensuring ARRL is supported so we can continue to promote and fight hard for our amateur radio service. And to IARU Region 3, the National Centre for Polar and Ocean Research, an autonomous institution under the Ministry of Earth Sciences, Government of India, is currently accepting applications for the 43rd Indian Scientific Expedition to Antarctica. In the previous expedition, 42 ISEA, Sarabjit Singh Chabra, an amateur radio operator with the call sign Victor Uniform 2 Charlie Uniform Whiskey, was chosen as the radio operator. For the upcoming expedition, 43rd ISEA, 3 amateurs will be included in the team. The Japan Amateur Radio League, JARL, has announced the return of JARL Ham Fair for 2023, this being the 45th event and expects to attract 30,000 visitors. The Ham Fair will take place August 19th and 20th. For VK1 WIA National News, in Sydney, I'm Jason, VK2LAW.
From here, there and everywhere, you've tuned to the Wireless Institute of Australia's National News Service. We are VK1WIA. Now, operational news with Felix, VK4FUQ.
Hello there. And as you know, ham radio, it's a contact sport. And what a better way than to have a host of contacts in our contest of contests, August 12 and 13, our Remembrance Day contest. Here now is WIARD Contest Manager, VK4SN, Alan.
The Remembrance Day contest is where we remember those 26 amateurs who paid the supreme sacrifice. Contest starts from 0300 Zulu Saturday, the 12th of August, until 0300 Zulu on Sunday the 13th. Categories are single operator QRP, multi-1 and multi-multi, using phone, CW/RTTY or mixed mode. Contacts can be reworked after 3 hours have elapsed. There are no blocks in the RD, just 3 hours between the same contact. If you're in it to win, then staying up for triple points between 1am and 6am local time is the go. VKCL Logger and N1MM Logger are the preferred logging software. Make sure you're running the latest versions. Please submit team nominations via email, vk4sn@wia.org.au, with your 3 operator call signs and a mailing address. A team consists of any 3 stations using a single transmitter, that is a single operator or a multi-operator single radio station. Just submit the log as normal and your submitted team scores are added together by the manager to produce the team results. Remember to send your login within 2 weeks after the contest. Many thanks and good luck. This is Alan, VK4 Sierra November.
August 26-27, Alara contest. All licensed operators throughout the world are invited to participate. Scout and Girl Guide groups are encouraged to participate using their club's equipment and call sign. YLs work everyone. OMs work YLs only. Combined phone and CW run over 24 hours. Saturday 0600 hours UTC till Sunday 0559 hours UTC. All HF bands except 160 metres and WARC bands. Echolink will also be accepted. October, Oceania DX contest. Phone, October 7-8, 0600 hours UTC Saturday to 0600 hours UTC Sunday. CW, October 14-15. Again, times are 0600 hours UTC Saturday to 0600 hours UTC Sunday. Log deadline for all phone and CW logs, 31 October. VHF UHF Field Day. Let's check in with Roger, VK2ZRH.
Thank you, Felix. Good morning, all VHF, UHF microwave contesters. This is Roger Harrison, VK2ZRH, Best While Manager of the VHF, UHF microwave contests. Now that the 2023 winter event is done and yet to be dusted, so to speak, I'm here to draw your attention to the fact that I have completed compilation of the results of the logs submitted for the 2022 summer event and posted them on the website. One of these fine days I will catch up with you. Something that sustains me in this exercise is the sight of logs coming from more geographically scattered areas, and by that I mean VK6s and VK7s, who were rare participants when I took on this work. I'm also sustained by seeing logs from the stalwarts who maintain interest and activity throughout the years. And another thing, an encouraging number of contestants entering logs that include the bands up to 120 gigs. Great to see. Also, I particularly note that small band of foundation and standard licensees having a crack on the band above 50 megs. And, along with this, I've become aware of those few contestants that have taken that next step on the licensing ladder and continue their participation in these contest events. Keep it up, people. This has been Roger Harrison, VK2ZRH, for VK1WIA News.
DX Window, August. VI10 VKFF running all year celebrates the 10-year anniversary of the VKFF group. Special event station VI100MB all year celebrates the centenary of the Manly Warringah Radio Society. China. QRV is BY2/K6FA until the middle of August. HF bands using mainly CW. QSL via LOTW. Republic of Korea. Vouter is on the air to August 16 as HL4/PB1WL. QSL to Vouter's home call PB1WL. Morocco. Michelle F5LRL is operating from near Kenitra as CN2DX until August 16, from 40 to 6 metres using CW and SSB, mainly in his morning and evening. QSL CN2DX via home call, which again is F5LRL. Iceland. MEC SP7BC and Cassia SQ7OYL will be operating as TF/SP7BC until August 17. They are travelling by motorhome, so are able to take all their needed amateur radio equipment. They are planning to be active on 14 MHz. Listen for the special event call sign A60AP, which is on the air until the 31st of August. The suffix stands for the Emirates Astronaut Program, which prepares crews of UAE astronauts for missions that include the International Space Station. QSL via EA7FTR. A DX achievement of 2 lifetimes. Our final look through the DX window today is a story that isn't about the DX achievement of a lifetime, it's about a personal tribute. Patrick Clark, KATAC, brings us that story now.
For some, a contact with Beauvais Island, considered the most remote island on Earth, is like winning the lottery. But for Bob Wirtz, NF7E, it means so much more in the amateur radio lexicon. The QSO he logged earlier this year with a 3Y0J DXpedition ended his 47-year journey to log all 340 independent DXCC entities. The ARRL requires contacts with only 331 such entities for any ham to be included on its DXCC honor roll. Clearly, Bob had his sights set on a higher mountain. His personal challenge began nearly a half a century ago. Speaking of mountains, the impressive log he's amassed toward that end includes another remote contact, Mount Athos in Greece, where the operator was Monk Apollo. Their QSO, using CW, took place in 2016. Monk Apollo, who is now a silent key, was viewed by DXers as one of the most sought-after contacts. Bob at one point thought it might end up being the most difficult contact since he became a ham in 1976. Beauvais, however, filled that role nicely. It also allowed him to fulfill a very personal and perhaps most most meaningful goal. In an interview with the Flagstaff Business News, he said he considers his completion of the challenge to be a tribute to his father, who held the call sign of KA9ACS and is now a silent key. This is Patrick Clark, K8TAC.
Thanks, Patrick. Now from Ingham, I'm Felix, VK4FUQ.
From here, there and everywhere, you've tuned to the Wireless Institute of Australia's National News Service. We are VK1WIA. Now, special interest group news with Cole, VK3GTV.
Hello, welcome to the segment. First up, it's Worldwide Flora and Fauna Program, Parks on the Air and SOTA. Summits on the Air, SOTA, in North America, has 3 events scheduled this weekend between August 4 and 7. The Colorado 14er event will run from August 4 to 7. The SoCal SOTA Fest in Southern California will run from August 4 to 6, and the Pacific Northwest Not Quite 14er event will run from August 5 to 6, and includes climbers in Washington and Oregon. SOTA is the worldwide award scheme for radio amateurs that encourages portable operation in mountainous areas. It provides opportunities for summit climbers, known as activators, to scale some of the highest peaks and contact amateur radio stations locally and around the world. Many different frequencies and modes will be used during the August events, but interestingly, in the USA there's a North America adventure frequency for SOTA on 2 meters. 148.580 MHz. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Astronomy. QRM playing havoc with astronomy. Large satellite constellations that provide detailed Earth imagery as well as broadband internet access to some regions have been shown to emit unintended electromagnetic radiation that may prove a challenge to radio astronomers' research. Scientists at the Max Planck Institute for Radio Astronomy in Germany report that interfering signals appear to come from the electronics on board a number of SpaceX satellites. Writing in the journal Astronomy and Astrophysics, the researchers said that they made the discovery using the facility's low-frequency array telescope. They drew their conclusions after observing 68 of the satellites in low Earth orbit. The report's lead author, Federico De Bruno, said the study represents the latest effort to better understand satellite constellations' impact on radio astronomy. The scientists said that the most recent observations confirm that there is a measurable existence of the radiation. Worldwide Special Interest Group News, ATV. Every pixel tells a story. A new amateur TV display has just been installed at the RSGB National Radio Centre with signals received via a wideband segment of the geostationary satellite QO100. Any trip to the motherland demands a visit to the NRC, and this new display and demonstration of amateur TV as a permanent display helps highlight yet another exciting aspect of our technical hobby. A special configuration, developed in conjunction with the British Amateur Television Club, incorporates a touchscreen from which visitors can select a signal to be tuned, decoded, and displayed on the large monitor. Student journalist makes video of GB23C SSES. Colin Butler, writing in ICQ Podcast, tells us how back in May of this year, student journalist Alina visited the UK special event station GB23C, run by Crave Valley Radio Society as part of the RSGBs. The video she's released includes interviews with members of CVRS talking about their equipment, making contacts around the world, and other historical events the club has been involved in, and you can view the video on YouTube. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Faith, Churches and Chapels on the Air. With the details, it's over to fellow Bendigonian WIA reporter, Bruce, VK3FFF.
This year, Chota is on Saturday, September the 9th. With the dramatic rise in Parks on the Air participation, getting churches on the air in a similar non-contest style would be enjoyable. Contact John, G3XYF. John only asks for activators to merely drop him a line with the call sign being used and the location of the church or chapel or other religious institution being activated. John will be using the call Golf Bravo 0 Lima Oscar Whiskey from his local church in the East Riding of Yorkshire. there is an award available for working any Chota stations on the Saturday of the event. Let's hope the conditions are good. Those claiming the award must contact 8 or more Chota stations.
Thanks, Bruce. Next up, it's Worldwide Special Interest Group's Final Frontier. India's second attempt to land on the moon, Chandrayaan-3, launched last month. The mission is a replacement for Chandrayaan-2, which crashed while descending to the lunar surface in September 2019. Chandrayaan-3 is scheduled for an August 23 or 24 arrival. The lander and rover is scheduled to operate for 1 lunar day, which is about 14 Earth days. Worldwide Special Interest Group's IOTA, Islands on the Air. Last weekend we saw the running of the RSGB IOTA contest, and many new to the IOTA scheme have been asking questions of exactly what it is. A list of island reference numbers and a guide for newcomers is available at the links we like in this week's August 6 WIA National News script, which you can find on our website, wia.org.au. Worldwide Special Interest Groups Maritime, including ILLW News. A reminder now that the International Lighthouse and Lightship Weekend is the third weekend of August, which this year is on the 19th and 20th of August. To ensure that they are prepared for emergencies and extreme weather, many of we hams are accustomed to sharpening our responses through regularly scheduled drills. But the drill that's taking place next month in Mobile, Alabama, or how our American friends would pronounce it, Mobile, is for a major event that actually happened more than 70 years ago. It was World War II. Jack Parker, W8ISH, fills in the details.
There will be a call to battle stations sounded on Saturday, August 12th, and those aboard the battleship USS Alabama and the submarine USS Drum will be ready for what is to follow in Battleship Memorial Park. Vintage enemy aircraft will do a flyover and a mock attack. The crew on board the ships will fire the vessel's 20mm guns. Meanwhile, radio communications will go forward with members of the Deep South Amateur Radio Club also on board, calling QRZ on 20 and 40 meters. They will be using the club call sign K4DSR and the call sign K5LDA. Unlike the radio amateurs, the crewmen are all reenactors. Dressed in World War II-era Navy uniforms, they will conduct weapons briefings and demonstrations while reliving some of the stories of that time. This is a living history crew drill designed to show the public just how things were in the heat of the war so many years ago. What the members of the living history crew share with the hams is that they are all volunteers. They show that they appreciate the spirit of volunteerism and education by conducting these drills to bring history to life again a few times each year. This is Jack Parker, W8ISH.
Thanks, Jack. And speaking of things and amateurs who've been around for some time, let's catch up now with Clive with the latest Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Radio Amateur Old-Timers.
Hello everyone, this is Clive, VK6CSW, reminding you that tomorrow is the first Monday of the month, time for the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club of Australia's August Bulletin to go to air. This month, as well as the latest club news, I'll be talking about OBO, a British bomb aiming system, which was the forerunner of DME, or distance measuring equipment. This will be followed by Bill, VK3BR, who talks about a book review on the Tatura Secret Radio. Everyone, RAOTC members and non-members alike, is most welcome to listen to the program and to join in the callbacks afterwards. Full details of all transmissions, times and modes can be found on the RAOTC website at www.raotc.org.au or just Google RAOTC broadcasts. If none of the transmission times suit you, you can download the audio file at any time from today from the club website. Members and friends of the RAOTC in Perth are reminded that the next lunchtime meeting at the Woodbridge Hotel, East Guildford, will be held tomorrow, Tuesday, August the 8th. All are welcome, and further details are published on the club website. 7-3 from Clive, VK6CSW.
Thanks, Clive, and once again tune in tomorrow for the August RAOTC Bulletin. Enjoy the program and please join in the callbacks afterwards. Now from old-timers to youngsters on the air, YOTA, here is VK2APC, Alec.
Thank you, and congratulations to 19-year-old Keys Van Oosby, W0AAE of Minnesota, who has been selected as the 2023 Bill Pasternak WA6ITF Memorial Amateur Radio Newsline Young Ham of the Year. Keys was honored for his leadership in helping other young amateurs through Youth on the Air and the Remote Ham Radio Youth Network. A visit to a museum with an amateur radio station at age 12 sparked his interest in becoming a ham. Studying on his own, he quickly earned his technician and general class licenses, then joined the Minnesota Wireless Association and developed his interest in contesting. HF was my life, Keys said. Contesting is pretty much my main thing in amateur radio, although I do branch out and do other things. Among those other things is Yoda Americas, in which he has taken on a variety of leadership roles, including the training of youth operators, serving as a QSL manager for W8Y contacts made with Yoda campers, and sharing his interest in remote operating. A 2023 graduate and class valedictorian of Heritage Christian Academy in his hometown, Keys will be attending Iowa State University, where he plans to study aerospace engineering. The YHOTY Award will be presented to Keys during a ceremony at the Huntsville Hamfest in Alabama on August 19th. Amateur Radio Newsline, CQ Magazine, and Yaesu USA are primary sponsors of the award, along with the Heel Sound Ltd. And Radio Waves Antenna Company. For VK1 WIA National News, I'm Alec, VK2 APC in Sydney.
Thanks, Alec. Next up, it's Worldwide Special Interest Group's Rescue Radio, IARU Region 3. The next WISA New South Wales monthly meetup is happening today, August 6, with another communications exercise being planned. To participate in any WISA event, or just to find out more about WISA New South Wales, you can email wicen, that's WICEN, .ops@vrarescue.org. Missed it? You can catch up with that link on the text edition of this broadcast. WISA nets are on every Sunday evening using FM voice, DMR or HF voice, depending on the week. All WISA members and other amateurs are welcome to join in. WISA New South Wales is a support squad of VRA Rescue New South Wales, specialising in tactical radio communications. In between activations, WISA supports local community events. These provide practical training for members and help raise the public profile of amateur radio. And that wraps up the segment for this week. Till next time, stay safe and warm. I'm Col, VK3GTV.
On the social scene in VK6, it's the Northern Corridor Radio Group's Hamfest that happens August the 20th. VK4 Redcliffe Car Boot Sale Saturday, August 26 at the Clubhouse at Kippering. Now till next we meet, and we're back up in VK4, where I'm sure it's going to be a little warmer than down here in Tassie. Anyway, thanks for listening and walk softly.
From Australia, this has been the Wireless Institute of Australia with the weekly news service. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.
Courtesy of Bevan, VK5 BD's ATV and YouTube channel, this has been WIA National News. We're back now, live and local, and your voice, your callbacks. And don't forget, tick like.
Greetings, listeners. This is VK3OTN, the official station of the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club of Australia, with this month's news and information bulletin for members and friends of the club for August 2023. I am Andrew, a VK3 Charlie Alpha Hotel. Details on when to hear the news and information bulletins are available at the club's website, www.raotc.org.au. VK3OTN is available on a wide range of radio platforms, HF, VHF and UHF, along with 2-metre repeaters, amateur television, DMR, that is digital mobile radio, and D-Star. These news broadcasts are available for download for up to 6 months, just in case you missed the original news broadcast from the RAOTC website. Just put RAOTC into your favourite search engine. If you'd like to contact the club, then why not send us an email? Our address is raotc@raotc.org.au. I hope you enjoy this month's news broadcast.
Welcome to the August 2023 edition of RAOTC Club News. For those listeners that aren't yet a member of RAOTC, but were wondering what the club is all about, I'd like to draw your attention to a new sample of the club's 6-monthly magazine, Old Timers News, or OTN, which is available on the club's website. OTN, as it's often called, is chock-a-block full of interesting articles relating to mostly historical aspects of our hobby, with a major emphasis on radio. However, often a wide range of other topics are sometimes covered. Generally, they are written by our members, drawing on their various life experiences. In the September 2022 edition, one of the subjects was a member who worked at Radio Australia's Shepparton facility. Another article covers the life and happenings of long-time amateur radio magazine editor Bill Rice of VK3 ABP. In the printed copy, which is mailed out, is also a comprehensive list of current members. If you haven't already done so, why not give it a look? Following several months of being off air due to antenna issues, Mike, a VK8MA, returned back on air as a relay station in May. Mike has conducted a relay of this news broadcast from Katherine in the Northern Territory, operating on 20 metres, beaming southeast towards Sydney. Unfortunately, band conditions weren't as good as one would have liked. However, conditions on 10 metres have been pretty good of late. Mike suggested he try 10 metres for the June broadcast on 28,450 kHz, and this appeared to be extremely successful. As a result, Mike will be operating on 10 metres, not 20 metres, at 0000 hours UTC for the time being. This information is displayed on the website. Currently, there is no 20-metre transmission at either 0000 or 0100 hours, so if any member is available to help out, then please drop a note to the RAOTC email inbox and let us know. While I'm on the subject of broadcasts, over the last 40 or so years that I've been licensed, I've seen a lot of changes into how audio broadcasting here in Australia is carried out. Many commercial and national broadcasters now encourage you to listen to them via their online or internet program streams, in addition to their traditional analogue transmissions. The national broadcasters also go out Australia-wide via their terrestrial television transmitter multiplexes. The RAOTC broadcast has also changed over the years, now going out on quite a few repeaters in VK3, VK6 and VK7, as well as at least 2 amateur TV repeaters. If the broadcast doesn't go out on your local repeater and you're in a position to help turn this situation around, then why not drop us a note via email to the RAOTC email inbox. There are no new offers for assistance in producing a broadcast every second month. So in the meantime, you've got me every even month, and I'll broadcast from 20 or more years ago on odd-numbered months. Annual General Meeting 2023. In accordance with the Rules of Association, notice is hereby given of the Annual General Meeting 2023 of the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club Australia Incorporated to be held at 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, that is 0400 UTC, on Thursday, the 21st of September 2023, and conducted via video conferencing using Zoom. The business: confirm minutes, receive the annual report of the committee, adopt accounts, to set the membership fees, and elect committee members. RAOTC members who wish to participate in this AGM will need to register beforehand by sending an email to raotc@raotc.org.au no later than Thursday, the 14th of September 2023. Those who register will receive an email prior to the AGM advising of the Zoom meeting ID number and the password to enable them to join the AGM, plus the AGM 2023 reports. The committee trusts that Victorian country and interstate RAOTC members will take this opportunity to actively participate in the AGM. Please note, if you don't have a camera or microphone, you can still join in. Melbourne, September 2023 Luncheon. The Melbourne September 2023 Luncheon of the RAOTC will take place from 1200 for a 12:30pm start on Thursday, the 28th of September, at the Caulfield RSL, 4 St George's Road, Elstonwick, Victoria. The guest speaker at the luncheon will be Peter Wolfenden, a VK3RV, who will present a talk and PowerPoint presentation about the leading lights and bright sparks of the Melbourne City Power Supplies. The Caulfield RSL offers a 2-course meal at a cost of $36 per head. Tea and coffee will be available for free. Soft drink, wine and other drinks can be purchased from the bar. Off-street parking is also available. RAOTC members are welcome to bring a friend, but we must have firm bookings no later than the 25th of September. You can also book using email or telephone, and please see the webpage Payment of Money to the RAOTC for methods on how to pay. Any queries are to be addressed to Mike Good, VK3BDL, whose contact details are located on the club's website. New members. Today I am pleased to welcome the following new members to the RAOTC. Peter Westgarth, a VK3 Alpha Papa Whiskey. John Payne, a VK3 Alpha Echo Delta. Greg Todd, VK7 Yankee Alpha Delta. And finally, Steve Jones, a VK2 Yankee Lima Delta. Silent keys. It is with regret I report the following silent keys. Kevin Trevathan, a VK3 of Victor Charlie, RAOTC member 1115, became silent key in early June 2023. Derek McNeil, a VK3 X-Ray Yankee, RAOTC member number 1370, became a silent key on July 28, 2023. Full details should be available in the upcoming edition of OTN. Let us pause a moment in memory of our departed colleagues. Members are reminded the very latest club news is available via the RAOTC website. Put RAOTC into your favourite search engine to find it. www.raotc.org.au. And that's all the club news we have for you at this time.
You are listening to VK3 OTN and associated relay stations. VK3 OTN is the official station of the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club, Australia Incorporated, with a monthly news and information bulletin for members and friends of the club.
This month we have several articles for you. First up is Clive, VK6CSW. He'll be talking about OBO, a British bomb aiming system which was a forerunner to DME, or distance measuring equipment. This will be followed by Bill, VK3BR, who tells us about a book review on the Tatura Secret Radio. Both of these articles were first broadcast in 2012 and have appeared as articles in past copies of OTN, the journal of the RAOTC. Have you got your own copy of OTN on disc yet? Now it's over to you, Clive, VK6CSW.
On September the 1st, 1939, Germany invaded Poland. By convention, this date is considered to be the start of World War II. 2 days later, on September the 3rd, Britain and France honoured their treaty obligations guaranteeing Poland's independence and declared war on Germany. Here, in keeping with that momentous date, is an item relating to World War II. It's entitled Oboe, an Instrument of War. Without some form of radio guidance, All-weather precision bombing in World War II was impossible. In articles previously published in OTN, we've seen how the Knickerbein radio system was used by Germany until countermanded by the British, how the RAF developed G and GH precision radio navigation aids, and how these were further developed post-war. This item looks at OBO, the most precise long-range bombing aid developed during the war. It was so accurate that the British had to carefully reconsider the question of the alignment of their ordnance survey maps with Europe. Finding your location by radio requires either 2 bearing measurements, 1 bearing and 1 distance measurement, or 2 distance measurements. The limitations of bearings taken by radio direction finders were well understood in the 1920s. In 1931, a German physicist, Dr. Meint Harms, patented the idea of calculating distance by measuring the time taken for a radio pulse to travel from transmitter to receiver. But the idea was ahead of its time, as no practical measurement method then existed. A few years later, advances in oscilloscopes, in particular the speed and stability of their time bases, made such measurements possible, leading to the development of radar. Much of this progress, made in the mid to late 1930s, was due to R.J. Dippy, a scientist working with Robert Watson Watt at RAF Bordsey in Suffolk, where Britain's chain-home radar was being developed. Dippy was the man behind G, RAF Bomber Command's highly successful World War II radio navigation aid, which measured the time of propagation of signals from 2 or more transmitters to determine the aircraft's position. The Germans, too, had worked along similar lines, and by the outbreak of war in 1939, had established a wide-ranging, low-frequency, hyperbolic radio navigation system called SONA, or SUN in English, covering an area from the Baltic to the North Atlantic. VHF radio distance measurement was also used by them in conjunction with a later version of their bomber beam guidance system, rather than the original cross beams used by Knickerbein. Using radio distance measuring for navigation has an advantage over radio beam navigation. With a beam navigation system such as Knickerbein, or today's ILS landing system, the beam is inevitably slightly fan-shaped, becoming wider with increasing distance, reducing navigational accuracy. It also confines the path to a straight line. Provided that the radio signal is line of sight, measuring the time interval from transmission to reception and converting it to distance is limited in accuracy only by the precision of the measuring equipment. A fix can be obtained anywhere within the common area covered by 2 transmitters, but if the 2 transmitters are on the same frequency, the measurements must be made in very quick succession. OBO was a highly refined radio bombing navigation aid developed from an idea by Alec H. Reeves of Standard Telephone and Cables Limited, following his escape from occupied France and his return to England in 1939, and implemented by Frank Jones of the Telecommunications Research Establishment, ably assisted by Dr. Dennis Stopes. Dr. Stopes later became a leading physicist at the University College of London, but his part in the evolution of OBO was so secret yet so essential that he was drafted into the RAF Pathfinders with the rank of Wing Commander to enable him to develop the airborne equipment used in conjunction with the ground-based control system. OBO's official title was Air Ministry Experimental Station Type 9000, or AIMS 9000. Like Dr. Harms, Reeves realized that measuring distance by radio was far more accurate than measuring radio bearings. The idea behind OBO was to use VHF radio distance triangulation to place bombers at the ideal point from which their bombs would hit their target, cloud cover notwithstanding. Pulsed signals sent from 2 widely separated transmitters in England triggered a transponder in the bomber, which transmitted return pulses to the ground stations on a slightly different frequency. The round trip taken by the pulses was translated into the bomber's distance from each ground station, one named cat and the other mouse. arcs of precise distance drawn from cat and mouse intersected at the calculated bomb release point. The operator at cat guided the aircraft along its arc, while the mouse operator measured the distance to the release point and instructed the aircraft when to drop its bomb. In calculating the release point, due allowance was made for the aircraft's height, heading and speed, and also for the estimated trajectory of the bomb, allowing for forecast winds. Bomb release point accuracy of a few tens of yards was achievable. Oboe was first used in December 1941 during a raid by short Stirling heavy bombers on Brest Harbour in the northwest coast of occupied France. Here the Germans had established a fleet of surface warships and U-boats which were devastating Allied shipping in the Atlantic. Although the system proved highly accurate, its VHF signals were of limited range, and the necessity to fly a steady, continuous arc while the transponder was transmitting signals which could betray the aircraft's position made the procedure potentially hazardous. Unlike G, the airborne transmitter of Mark I Oboe limited its use to one aircraft at a time. Further trials showed that because of this limitation, Oboe would be better suited to pathfinder bomb-aiming marker operations by twin-engined Mosquito fighter bombers, the Mosquito dropping a flare or other marker which the main bomber stream could then aim at. The Mosquito's ability to fly high and very fast reduced its vulnerability to German fighter attack when maintaining its steady approach arc, while its ability to fly much higher than the heavy bombers increased the range of the VHF signals. Unlike the relatively slow Stirlings and other heavy bombers, the Mosquito was not easy to catch. The first two operational Oboe ground stations were set up at Dover on the British south coast and at Cromer on the north coast of East Anglia, some 25 miles north of Norwich. Later, many more stations were established, any one of which could act as either cat or mouse, chosen to give the best arcs for any given raid. On the night of the 21st of December 1942, 6 Oboe-equipped Mosquitoes of 109 Squadron successfully attacked a power station at the Dutch town of Luteraard on the German-Dutch border, about 25 kilometres north-northeast of the city of Maastricht. This was primarily a calibration raid to assess equipment accuracy, and although 3 of the Oboe sets failed, the others proved successful. All 6 Mosquitoes returned safely. Oboe-equipped Pathfinder squadrons were soon to lead bomber attacks against Germany. Oboe was used to great effect during the remainder of the war, although its line-of-sight nature limited the depth of penetration into Germany. It also figured famously in Operation Manna, when food drops were made to succor Dutch resistance fighters still trapped under German occupation. Guided by Oboe, food canisters were dropped within 100 feet of the aiming point. The Mark I version of Oboe operated on VHF at approximately 200 MHz or 1.5 meters, borrowing much of its technology from chain home and early air-to-surface vessel radar experience. Cat and mouse operated on the same interrogating frequency with a pulse repetition frequency of about 133 Hz, with the aircraft responding on a slightly different frequency. The pulse width could be varied to give dots or dashes, received orally by the pilot. CAT sent continuous dots if the aircraft was inside the desired arcs, dashes if it was beyond the arc, and a continuous tone when on course. A good pilot-controller team could keep the aircraft within a few yards of the ideal course. While CAT kept the aircraft tracking around the arc, Mouse monitored the distance to run to the release point. A bomb-aiming computer at Mouse calculated the precise bomb release point. Various Morse letters signifying key points in the approach arc were sent to the pilot. A series of 5 dots from Mouse denoted the release point. Because the transponder in Mark I Oboe limited its use to one aircraft at a time, navigation to the initial point for an Oboe run was usually by G or other means, including dead reckoning or map reading. A complete oboe run from the initial or waiting point to the release point took about 10 minutes, so only 6 runs could be made in every hour. It took the Germans almost a year to crack the secret of oboe, and only in August 1943 did they begin taking effective jamming countermeasures. By this time, though, centimetric radar had been developed, and Mark II oboe was moved to the 3000 megahertz or 10 centimeter S-band wavelengths, which the Germans had difficulty in detecting at that time, and which proved to have a longer range than the Mark I VHF system. To mislead the Germans, obsolescent VHF oboe was employed on dummy raids while genuine attacks were made by S-band oboe-equipped aircraft, a ruse which the Germans failed to uncover until July 1944. Mark III oboe, introduced in April 1944, was more sophisticated than the earlier versions, allowing up to 4 aircraft to operate simultaneously on the same frequency and also enabling straight rather than arced bombing approaches to be made. Although oboe was a remarkably accurate radio navigation aid, it was overshadowed by the introduction of GH in October 1943. GH was also a twin-range transponding system, but was aircrew navigator interpreted rather than being a ground-based operator guidance system. Importantly, it reversed the transponding arrangements by having the transmitter in the aircraft and the transponders on the ground. By slightly varying the pulse timing of the aircraft transmitter, up to 80 aircraft could use any pair of GH ground stations concurrently. GH remained a standard feature in RAF bombers well into the jet age and was the forerunner of today's distance measuring equipment, DME.
You are listening to VK3OTN. VK3OTN is the official station of the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club, Australia, incorporated with the monthly news and information bulletin for members and friends of the club.
The Tatura Secret Radio. The following is a review sent in by Peter Cosway, VK3DU, RAOTC member number 1447, and it is of an interesting book entitled The Tatura Secret Radio. When we think about secret radios in prisoner of war camps, we tend to think only of those secret radios built by members of the Allied forces in POW camps during World War II. This book, however, is an account of a secret radio built in an Allied internment camp in Australia. It details how a Norwegian seaman was detained in Australia during World War II and how he built and operated an illegal radio receiver to get news from Europe. The author, Håkon Nilsen, was born in Norway in 1917. He informs us that as a boy he developed a fascination for radio when it was introduced to the rural area where he grew up. He describes firstly building a one-valve receiver, and as his enthusiasm and knowledge grew, more elaborate sets were built with wire aerials to receive signals from Oslo and Copenhagen. When he grew older, he sought employment as a seaman. His radio hobby continued, and he built radios in his spare time on board ship. As an amateur radio enthusiast reading this book, Peter 3DU wondered whether he developed an interest in this aspect of radio, but it seemed his interest was only in receiving various national and commercial stations. Amateur radio is not mentioned at all. Later in the book, the author expressed a lack of interest in Morse code. For someone experimenting with radio in that era, Peter says he would have expected that some knowledge and appreciation of Morse would have been mandatory for an involvement in amateur radio. Nilsen stated that he'd been a seaman for about 5 years when World War II commenced. His ship arrived in Newcastle, New South Wales in 1940, and for various reasons, which he explains in his book, he decided to travel down to Sydney to join a different ship. He recalls that at this time his English language abilities were limited to a few simple phrases. Authorities detained him, and he was subsequently moved to the Tatura No. 1 internment camp in country Victoria. The camp held about 1,000 civilian males. They were detained because they were considered to be a security risk due to their nationality. The camp held a lot of Germans, but only a few Danes, Finns and Norwegians. All mail into and out of the camp was heavily censored. Nielsen was very keen to get news from Norway and devised plans to build a shortwave receiver. He informs readers that many of the German internees were also interested in news of the war. The earlier attempts by Germans, with what were essentially crystal sets, had received only 3SR AM station in nearby Shepparton. He states that the Australian authorities were always suspicious that this sort of illegal activity could be attempted, and internees with any radio or even electrical experience were watched closely. He surmises that since he was a Norwegian seaman, he did not attract particular attention. He planned his radio with help from German internees with relevant skills and knowledge. Nielsen developed expertise with both the German and English language during his internment. The camp had film projection equipment and spare valves were obtained for the project. Internees went out of the camp on supervised work groups on neighbouring farmland. A battery radio was found in a farm shed, and the valves were smuggled back into the camp. The book doesn't provide any relevant circuit details, but does describe how critical components were made. For example, fixed capacitors were fabricated from paraffin-impregnated paper and silver foil from chocolates and cigarette packets. The variable capacitors were built by a coppersmith in the camp. Batteries were built by German industrial chemists from an old car battery found by a camp working party. A sheet of roofing iron was insulated with rubber grommets and was used as an antenna. The author devised an aerial trap to limit interference from the strong AM Shepparton station. The book describes how the radio was concealed and how it was operated at night. The author reports reception of shortwave stations from Germany and Japan, as well as the BBC from England. In addition to accounts of the radio operation and the subsequent discovery by Australian authorities, there are many details of life in the camp. The internees had assistance from the Red Cross, but the author notes that he had no assistance from any Norwegian consul. Nielsen, who wrote the book in 1997, states that he visited the campsite in 1951 and again in 1996. In 1991, though, he read an account of the operation of the illegal camp radio in an edition of the Tatura Guardian newspaper published in 1947. He considered that many of the newspaper article details were inaccurate, and he was keen to give his version of the events. The book acknowledges assistance from Australian sources and contains pictures provided by the Australian War Memorial, in addition to photos provided by the author. In Peter VK3DU's opinion, the book provides an interesting account of life in the Tatura prison camp. The description of the construction and operation of the subject radio, along with the author's version of events, makes for entertaining reading. The Tatura and District Historical Society run the Tatura Irrigation and Wartime Camps Museum and Shop. They stock copies of this book, plus a number of other books providing details about the 7 prisoner of war and internee camps that existed in that area. There is also a lot of information in a website at http://www.taturamuseum.org.au. Thanks to Peter Cosway, VK3DU, for this review of a book about an interesting piece of Australian World War II history.
Thanks very much, Clive and Bill, for those articles. There'll be plenty more articles from both Clive and Bill in upcoming future news broadcasts, many of which our listeners will be hearing for the very first time.
You are listening to VK3OTN and associated relay stations. VK3OTN is the official station of the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club Australia Incorporated, with the monthly news and information bulletin for members and friends of the club.
Perth Luncheons. The popular and well-attended monthly luncheons for RAOTC members and friends in and around the Perth area are held on the second Tuesday of each month. The VK6 RAOTC group have a new venue, the Woodbridge Hotel, 50 East Street, East Guildford. Reports indicate the hospitality to be excellent. The Perth group meet at 11:30 a.m. for lunch at 12 midday. This is not a buffet meal, but excellent food in both pensioner and standard portions are available. We would like to place the orders at 12 midday, so please don't be late. This information is courtesy of Phil, VK6ZKO, whose contact details can be found on the club website.
In keeping with tradition, we conclude this broadcast with a short story entitled A Moving Experience. An absent-minded academic had just moved to a new house further along the same street. All too aware of his tendency to forget things, his wife took the precaution of writing down the new address on a piece of paper before he set off for work that morning. "Here's the key to our new house," she said, "and remember, don't come back here this evening, go to the new address." "Very well, dear," he replied, and set off for work. Inevitably, in the course of the day, he mislaid the slip of paper, and forgetting all about the move, he automatically returned to the old address. When he tried the key, he couldn't get in. This prompted him to remember the move, and to search in his pockets for the piece of paper, which was nowhere to be found. In desperation, he wandered along the street and stopped the first approachable young man he came across. "Excuse me, young man, I'm Professor Richardson. You wouldn't have to know where I live, would you?" The boy sighed. "Come with me, Dad," he said.
That's all we have for you this month, and we hope you found something of interest. Thanks for being with us, and we hope you will join in the callbacks, where callbacks are taken. The next RAOTC News and Information broadcast will take place on the first Monday of next month, on the same frequencies, and at the same times as today, with the exception of January. If you have missed all or part of this broadcast, or you just want to listen to it again, it is available for download from the RAOTC website. Simply go to www.raotc.org.au. Again, the website URL is www.raotc.org.au. On the right-hand side is the main menu. Click on VK3OTN Broadcasts, and you will be able to see the various times and frequencies of the VK3OTN transmissions by all of our volunteers, provided of course a volunteer is available. Down towards the bottom of the page is the current and previous 5 broadcasts for you to listen to. Sometimes the relay station is an automated broadcast, for example, a repeater, where no operator is available to take callbacks. Other times the volunteer operator suffers from very heavy local QIM, and callbacks are not always possible. Many operators need a small amount of time to switch from playing a recorded file to using a microphone. Please be mindful of this. This is VK3OTN signing clear from today's news and information session 73 from the RAOTC broadcast team.
Oh, good morning, everyone. This is VK3CSJ. Hope you enjoyed this morning's WIA broadcast and the RAOTC's news bulletin, which I usually put out once a month when it comes across. During the broadcast, there was a reference made to a video that was done by a student journalist whose name is Alina. Don't know her surname. But in May 2023, student journalist Alina visited the special event station GB23C, run by the Cray Valley Radio Society, as part of the RSGB's celebrations for the coronation of King Charles III. The video she has released includes interviews with members of the CVRS talking about their equipment, making contacts across the world, and other historical events that the club has been involved in. So courtesy of Alina, we shall play this video. It only goes for almost 5 minutes, 4 minutes and 42 seconds, so it's not very long, but I thought I'd just throw that up there since it was referred to in the broadcast. So here it is, if it all plays okay. I think I've got the audio selected. Yep, there we go. All right, across to this video.
Here in Greenwich at the Old Royal Naval College, a range of activities are taking place to mark King Charles III's royal coronation, one of them being Radio Coronation, which is being organised by Cray Valley Radio Society, who are based in Eltham and were founded in 1946.
So we've been here since Wednesday with a big aerial up on an 80-foot mast, about 23-metre mast at the back there, and we're radio amateurs, so this is what we do for a hobby. It's not professional, but because London's the centre of the world today, there's over 1 million radio amateurs around the world, and they all want to contact London, so we're making as many contacts as we can in the time. We had a target of 14,000, which we probably won't hit, but we'll make over 10,000 contacts. We've got 3 stations transmitting on the shortwaves. You might be able to hear in the background some Morse code, so 2 of them are using Morse, which we use a lot on radio, and then the guy in the middle is on speech. So
Dave explains the technicalities behind how this all works.
Well, it's magic. Einstein said, he said, well, radio's easy to understand. The electric telegraph is like a very long cat. You pull its tail in New York and it meows in San Francisco. Radio's the same without the cat. So the signals go through the airwave, through the ether, and they bounce off layers above the Earth. So we can contact New York, we can contact California, we've had contacts with New Zealand, Australia, Japan, Brazil, Fiji, all over the world really. Just using about 400 watts, which is less power than used to boil water in the kettle. And the aerial outside doesn't have to be a big aerial. We've got some wire antennas, they're quite low, and we can get all the way around the world with that. And we do it for fun. It's what we do.
Stephen Hudson, a radio enthusiast from Georgia, USA, is in England on his honeymoon with his wife Trisha. He has come down to help the guys out with the radio coronation. Since starting on Wednesday, the guys here have been able to speak to people from all over the world.
Because we're trying to get to that 14,000, everyone has a call sign. Our call sign is Golf Bravo 3, Golf Bravo 23, coronation, C for coronation. Everyone else has a call sign, so if someone calls us with call sign K3 Lima Radio, you know the K means he's in the USA. If it's ZL2IFB, ZL is New Zealand, so you know straight away from the call sign what part of the world you're working.
This is not the first time Cray Valley have done this. They have taken part in various historic events.
We did it in the year 2000 up on the top of Blackheath, in fact, for the millennium. Then we did it at Windsor in 2002 for the Golden Jubilee, a long time ago now. And then we were back here in 2005 for Trafalgar. And then we said no more, this is too much work. And then the Olympic, this call sign here, 2 Oscar 1 2 Lima, the Olympics came to Greenwich. And so we're based in Eltham, which is part of the borough of Greenwich. So we did it again. And then last year we did it at Windsor for the Platinum Jubilee. So this is the 3rd one, and then we're saying, but we have the Cray Valley Radio Society, which is based in Eltham. We've started to get some younger members, Ewan there, he's in his 20s, and we're hoping that some of the youngsters will take over from us who've done it for too many years now. We'll get some new people doing it.
Event organiser Trevor recalls Queen Elizabeth II's coronation 70 years ago.
Back in 1953, I was 5, and all the streets had parties for the children, so all the roads were closed off, and obviously loads of tables with Union Jacks on, loads of cakes and tea, and every child got a teacup and a saucer with the Queen's picture and the crown and everything else on it. As I said, and it was much as it is today with the weather, it wasn't too good, but being a child and getting free cake and lemonade and things like that, obviously it was it went off well.
Coronation messages have come from all over the world to Greenwich.
And everyone so far has said congratulations. In fact, funny this morning, the first person I spoke to, he said, can you give them my regards for the coronation? I said, well, next time I see him, I'll let him know.
The team finish here on Tuesday the 9th of May, and hopefully they can get close to 14,000 messages.